Hello there, Hotheads. It's John, in the Edipe, coming at you with episode 8 of our sideshow, Echo Base Nights. This week, Ian and I go over our experiences at Wondercon Anaheim 2019. The costumes we wore, the costumes we saw, and probably something else about costumes. There's a lot of costume talk in this. It's a little bit shorter this week, but it's the perfect length to put on in the background while you unpack all the fun stuff you got at Celebration Chicago.
You and I did attend a convention, and that was a WonderCon in Anaheim. Yeah, we went up there. So, and we also ran into some of our friends from San Diego Sabres while we were there, and we did a lot of Star Wars related stuff, including showing up in costume. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what costumes we had with us when we went?
Well, if you're one of the strange people that actually goes on our website and reads any of our articles, bless your hearts, you may have seen photos of the costumes that we've done before from Comic-Con of last year. I was in my AT-AT Commander costume, which is not a General Veers costume. But anytime anyone recognizes it and asks, it's just easier to say it is. The rank bars on my uniform and on my body armor are Commander and not the General, as I do not meet the prerequisite standards of looking like Julian Glover to call myself General Veers.
That's fair enough.
I am too short and questionably too Filipino. And I'm so excited when people ask me if it's Veers that someone is interested in a suit of armor that is worn one time throughout all the movies.
Right.
Though one can make an argument that Han Solo wore it in when he was fighting on Mimban. Though
True.
it is a slightly different armor than the Mud Troopers. So if someone stopped me and was like, "Is that Veers?" I just go, "Yes, thank you for remembering the minute and a half this armor's on screen."
Did you craft anything for your Veers?
The only thing that's the armor and the helmet were a kit. The uniform was from Cosplay Sky, an Asian costume supplier. When I got the kit, it was just a fiberglass shell. All like the buttons and the antenna on the helmets and weird circuitry on the back panel was all hand done. But for the most part, it was all purchased except for the greeblies. The only thing that was on it that was handmade when the first time I wore it was the belt. And then Comic-Con, we walked by the Anovos booth. They were having a sale on the Imperial belts, and I got one for I think like $35 or something like that. So now there's nothing on there that's like handmade from scratch. Ian, what did you do? Since you had one costume both days?
But you did hand make the costume that I wore both days, and I was a Stormtrooper Corps Imperial officer. The Stormtrooper Corps are the ones that wear the black uniforms. But yeah, so I had I wore that this year, but that was a lot of fun. That thing gets hot, so I appreciate that the convention was mostly air conditioned. And you were carrying around like fiberglass plate on top of that.
Yeah, all those stormtroopers walking around with their ABS plastic armor. And I'm pretty sure that the armor I'm wearing weighs about as much as an entire suit of stormtrooper armor at this point.
And then what did you do the second day?
So real quick, just to go back to the first day, and we stayed at my cousin's place, and we luckily had a Jedi Knight costume for him. I think it was an Obi-Wan costume, right?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about this.
Ian had a project he started a couple of years back, and we have been stockpiling Star Wars costumes in a box. So we just happened to have one in his size. So he got to walk around as a Jedi.
He really pulled off the look too. It was like very Jedi-like.
I like to think of maybe not Attack of the Clones. Yeah, Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan. Wasn't fully long bearded yet. Adult Obi-Wan.
Yes.
So then Sunday I busted out my Star Tours flight controller costume, which, again, if you're one of the few souls that reads anything on our actual website, you've seen the behind the scenes on that costume build. Unfortunately, my friend Catherine wasn't able to join us, so I didn't have my flight attendant buddy to join me in our costumes, which you can see on the website, which I will link somewhere.
Yeah, we'll throw up
But
some. We'll throw up some photos with
that one
this.
is 100% handmade. And what that one is the lessons that I learned in making Egan's Imperial Officer tunic redone in my size with alternating orange and blue fabric that match like the original Star Tours color schemes, complete with the same thing with an officer's hat in orange and blue. The things that really make that costume the best, I think, are like the small details on it, like the patches I have on the sleeves. One is a star speeder taken off into the sky with 1987 in the bottom to commemorate the birthday of the original Star Tours. The other one is a completely embroidered Star Tours like triangular patch that I got from our buddy Trooper Bay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of authentic Disney pins strategically placed around it. Instead of a code disc on the center of the hat, I have a Star Tours pin. On the collar, I have a Tatooine Express pin. And then some pins and other items from some of the custom enamel pin community have made some great ones. Oh, and the scrolling LED name tag,
which is amazing.
It's not my name, but it's a list of flights, departure times, and flight statuses that are all interrupted by a 8-bit star speeder flying across the screen as a wipe until the next one, and then that's all in Arabic. The last 2 times I've worn it, I've met at least 2 people that are fluent in Arabic that could actually read it as it scrolled by. Both Imagineers.
That's fantastic.
So good on you, Imagineers.
Now, we weren't the only well-dressed Star Wars-loving individuals on the floor that day. There were plenty of other costumed individuals and people part of costuming groups. It was good to see the Mando Mercs, the 501st, and the Rebel Legion there, as always. Also the R2 Builders Club. So it was really good to see them back. This year they had a couple really cool photo opportunities, would be the best way to describe it.
The Rebel Legion showed up with a facade of the Imperial bunker on Endor. 2 photo ops in front of. The Rebel scum there captured us. Pics in the doobly-doo.
The Mando Mercs had one as well that I didn't realize what it was until I was looking at photos after the convention, but they had like a jail cell sort of thing where you can act like you were captured by the Mando Mercs.
I don't want to go over there because they had a Wookiee as an Imperial loyalist. They had a Wookiee that wasn't in chains, and I didn't think that was safe for the general public or myself. That
guy was. I'm gonna come back to that guy. But that was probably one of my favorite unique Star Wars costumes of the convention. But before we get to that, we also got a really cool picture with 501st, where it was like maybe 6 other guys in front of that. How do you describe that? You know,
it was the Death Star hallway. The Imperial oval light walls.
Right. And I think we got like 6 of the 501st members that just were hanging out with us in that picture, and it looks awesome.
One of the most favorite people we met was in that group, which is the guy in the AT-AT driver costume that just like pulled me out of the crowd and demanded I take pictures with them. And then me and him got in an argument with somebody about AT-ATs. Somebody came up and was like, it's like you guys and your AT-ATs, and it's like you guys go out there and you just hide in your metal boxes on legs. That AT-AT commander guy was awesome because later they did the Star Wars costume group photo out in front of the convention center, and the 2 guys organizing that picture would call out groups of costumes to line them up and space them out on these terrace steps. They called officers, which if they're going by 501st detachment rules, my costume is not in the officer detachment. So you took off.
Yep.
And then me and the AT-AT commander were the only guys I saw there that were would be part of the armored cavalry division if I was 501st. So I just kind of sat there and waited with him, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, just grabbed me by the shoulders, like, don't worry, you're with me, and I'm always front and center. So me and him got to be in front of everybody in that picture. So that was kind of cool. Well, I felt bad because where he put me was in front of a handful of non-named character Jedi that were about my height. So if I continued to stand there, it would be blocking them, and I felt really bad about that. So and him took a knee, and then I met a lady in a Star Speeder costume.
Yeah. So speaking of the lady in the Star Speeder costume, and then also going back to the Wookiee guy, there were some really great, unique Star Wars costumes. And one of the things that you've always said, John, is, and I'm sure the listeners have heard before, is like the unique costumes and ones that are like, only a few people
Yeah.
are really going to understand what the reference is. Those are kind of your favorite
Yeah.
costumes. So as someone who really enjoys that part of it, what were some costumes you saw at this year's WonderCon 2019 that really stood out to you?
I'd say the lady in the Star Speeder costume, but I'm upset with her because she didn't wear it the day I was wearing my Star Tours thing, which would be the third convention I've been to that she's worn that at, that I was wearing a different costume the next day.
You guys got to coordinate next time.
I've been trying to. I've literally spent hours over the past week looking for pictures of her costume and trying to see if someone has attached a name to her. Because I really do. Because this isn't actually the first time I've seen her in this costume. It's her Star Speeder. So she's a elderly woman that uses it's not really a wheelchair. It's like an electric scooter to get like mobility scooter, I guess. And she built a Star Speeder 3000, the original Star Tour ship, around her chair, and she kind of pokes out the top of it. And the outfit she wears is more reminiscent of what the cast members wear at Disneyland that happens right than what I wear. And I think I saw her at Comic-Con the next year. I gotta go through my pictures because I'm sure I got a picture of her. But yeah, I need to find out her contact info so I can. So her, I, and Catherine, and if we get your Star Tours costume finished, can all meet up with her.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
The ones that I really enjoyed this year were like hers, where somebody that you wouldn't normally think could get away with doing a costume, being able to. Like we ran into an older Asian woman dressed as Rose Tico, and she had mounted a stuffed father head on the front of her walker. So as she walked, it looked like she was riding a father, which is a very strange word to say and not feel confident that you're saying it correctly.
Right, I agree. I've had this problem with this creature.
So I really like that one. And then there was just like a handful of, again, those costumes that a handful of people are going to get. There's a group of guys dressed as the characters from the Mighty Boosh.
Oh yeah,
when they worked at the zoo, and like I wanted to go up to them and see if they would crimp for me, but I couldn't remember what crimping was or how to pronounce it, so I just kept walking.
A couple of ones that stood out to me in terms of the Star Wars world was that Wookiee Mando, that Wookiee Mandalorian that we saw. So he had the full Wookiee suit with stilts, so he was like 9 feet tall, terrifying, and he just had all sorts of Mandalorian armor plates situated everywhere. He had a bag of porgs in it. I'm pretty sure they moved too. They were like, the
battery powered flapping
right. And I stopped at this guy and I looked up at him. It was like legitimately intimidating. Like he did a great job with that costume. And I like to be in character a little bit when I see other people in costume. And I think I said something along the lines of like, who gave it armor? There was a Mando Merc dressed as Bo-Katan who like got really offended by that, and he's just like, he passed his Mandalorian trials, so he has the right to wear it. And I was like, he's going to kill me. They're all going to kill me.
It's fun to go up to a Wookiee and ask him where his chains are. Where are your chains, Wookiee?
There was also a guy, I don't know if you saw him. He was in a great General Grievous costume.
Yeah,
and it was one of those things where like he's inside the cape and the sort of skeletal structure of Grievous is built outside of it. So that was a really, really cool one. There was also a guy in like the Endor Rebel armor. Just again, like I said, I like doing like little in-character things. I just pointed at his weapon and was like, is that weapon registered? He looked at the gun, looked at me, and just really, really loudly was just like, suck it. Followed by, I can't wait to blow you up later. Rebel scum. It was awesome.
Rebel scum, indeed.
one thing with like Star Wars costumes and costuming in general, when you are doing a costume, what kind of things do you like to do to kind of set yourself apart from every other one that is the same?
For Star Wars, it's different. With a sea of stormtroopers, there's nothing you can do to make yourself unique, and that's what makes it unique, is that
Right.
all these guys are walking around looking the same. Imperial officers, it's kind of the same. There's just another face in the crowd. For Star Wars, like, the reason I picked Veers was because I wanted to wear armor, but I also couldn't afford stormtrooper armor. So I thought that this was an easy compromise, and if I could ever get a hat made out of this right color, then I have just a regular Imperial officer, not
Right.
the gray-green uniform ones. The
Yeah,
only one that
regular
I have that's
army.
really unique is the Star Tours one, which in no way is canon in anything. And I think that's kind of the limitation with a lot of the Star Wars costuming, is a lot of these guys are 501st or wanting to be 501st or Rebel Legion, and so there are costuming standards.
Yeah,
Like, they don't really allow for much individualism.
sure.
The only ones that really can get away with it are Rebel pilots with their custom helmets,
Hmm.
Rebel indoor troopers, just because they can, the gear they wear is kind of modular and they can switch it out. Same with the Scarif Rebels. There's such a variety of them that not all of them are going to look unique unless everyone's doing Cassian. I mean,
Right.
I have a Scarif Marine costume. I wore to. I didn't want to bring up to WonderCon because that's 3 costumes I would have to deal with in my trunk, and I
Right.
didn't want to. The Mando mercs have they definitely have a different system than the 2 other big costuming groups, just because they actually encourage that individuality
Right.
when you make your character, which I think is cool.
But yeah, dude, the just seeing the number of stormtroopers out there, there was a point where I was holding the door open for people that were heading to the photo op, and I'm standing there like trying to put my gloves on. It was trooper after trooper after trooper, stormtrooper, death trooper, and then like a bunch of Cylons for no reason. But like it was just this continual stream of people, and I'm just sitting there going, trooper, 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 trooper. And every time they'd pass me, one would go like, sir, 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 sir. It was awesome. Oh, and the first day too, when I when we got there, you had already gotten your badge because you were there one more day than Katie and I. The day that we had to get, we picked up our badges, and going to the area where you take the escalator up to the show floor, there was a group of 501st guys, and they'd set up like a checkpoint, and we're screening everybody going to the show floor for stolen coaxium. So it's that kind of stuff that I really love when it comes to coming to these conventions and meeting other Star Wars fans and stuff, is those little interactions where, you know, you don't know who these people are. You know, you may have never met them before, but you still get to have these minor interactions with other people expressing their fandom through costuming, where, you know, you can come back and tell these little stories, and it's a lot of fun, and it feels good to be surrounded by people who love a thing as much as you do, you know?
I agree. I do agree with you.
Okay. One thing I want to do before we wrap everything up is, you know, we when we go to these sort of conventions, not only do we look at them as a way to have a lot of fun, but we also use it as kind of a networking thing, and to reach out to and learn about other entertainers and people who do podcasts and nerddom and fan stuff. I wanted to give 2 shout outs to 2 people I talked to. I did meet a fellow podcaster. Her name was Cassandra, I believe, and she is the co-host of a podcast called We Are 11, and they talk about nerddom and video games and cosplaying, and they do a podcast, and they also talk about some mental health stuff. So if you are interested in that kind of content, please go check them out. And then I also talked to the con guy. He and his team do a podcast about conventions. So if you're interested in more convention stuff, those are two podcasts that you might want to check out. Anything come to mind for you, John?
Only thing I have to say is I hope you all had a good time at Star Wars Celebration, because it will be over by the time this comes out.
Yep. And I'm sure we're going to be drowning
Tim, you have not gotten me a Veers Watch button. That Bo Keevil costume, I might have lost all my references for it. I don't know what happened. My hands are tied.
Are you shaking down friend of podcast Tim?
Well, it's not really a shakedown since you'll be home by the time he hears this.
Are you...
So Tim, friend of show Tim, friend of all podcasts, better get your butt back to Chicago. Give me that darn button. I tell you what.
I tell you what.
That's all I got. Tim.
Yeah, I think that'll just about do it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time, I guess. Okay, bye.
Wasn't that just delightful? Ian and I both love all the creativity that go into creating Star Wars costumes. Do you have one that you like to wear? How about the one that you like to see? Does that sentence even really make sense? Let us know by sending us an email at hothpod@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can get a hold of us through the Twitter with our handle @Hothpod. It's pretty simple. If you'd like to check out any of our costume build posts on our website, that website's address, which I will give you soon, is www.hothtopicspodcast.com. Just click on the Imperial Propaganda link on the toolbar. Title bar, menu bar. We're going to go with menu bar, which will bring you to a slightly easier to navigate listing of all of the costume builds that I and Ian have done over the past year and are planning to build, are building and in the process of building or something. Our next full-length episode will be our 30th episode overall of the main show, and also will be our celebration of our 1 year as a podcast. Now, due to Star Wars Celebration happening the same week that happened, some of the plans for that episode had to be postponed. But hopefully that episode will be released the week after Celebration or 2 weeks, depending on the timing of some of the things that we would like to do for that episode. So for my co-host Ian, I am John, in the Edit Bay. And may the Force be ever in your favor. Good night.
My brain's shutting off because I'm staring at gifs of the gobbledygooker jumping out of an egg. Need to close that window.